Hi everyone, this is Ekta, and I'm extremely excited to be here today. And I'm going live from Read a Kitab, and today we are going to have a very special guest with us, Marjan Kamali, and I'm so excited to be with her today. And I can't and we'll just have her very soon. So I'm just, she's just sent a request. We'll just add her. Just give me. Oh, hi. How are
Hi,
you?
good. How are you? It's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you too, and extremely happy and delighted to have you here, Marjan. I hope I'm pronouncing your name
Yes,
correctly.
yes, that's fine. Lovely to see you. Hi.
Hi, so
Hello,
good to
hi.
see
It's
you.
so good to see you.
I can't believe
Extremely
this
happy.
moment.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh,
So yeah, people say dreams come true, and I'm sure the three of us are, feeling the same today, Marjan. We're so happy to have
Totally.
you.
well, it's an honor to join you. Hello to you. I know it's 9:30 p.m. in India. Am I correct?
Nine,
Oh,
nine. It's
nine.
nine in India.
That's right. 9 in
Yeah,
India. Yeah. No, thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you.
awesome. So I'm Ekta, and I have with me Abhishek
Hi, lovely to
Hi.
meet
and
you.
Lovely to meet you
and
too.
Neeraj.
Hi, Marjan. I can't believe I'm talking to you. Oh my God.
Oh, it's a pleasure to see you guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, hi everyone. Welcome to Read a Kitab, and we are so extremely delighted to have Marjan Kamali with us today. And we read her book together as a club, and we've talked about it so much. And I must tell you that she is one of those rare authors, who is as evocative in writing as she is eloquent in speaking. So, I'm sure that, we're going to have a fantastic time with her today. And with that said, Marjan, um, let's just kind of start because we have so much to talk to you. So, just to begin, I just wanted to ask you that, in India, the stationery shop of Tehran and Tea Together has been such massive hits. And, people are just raving about it. And we loved the books, totally. And we just fell in love with Roya, Zari, Baman, all of them. And we can't get enough of it. So, did you think that in India that kind of response you'll be getting, from this part of the world?
You know, the response from India has been amazing. I didn't expect it, but I've certainly loved it. It means a lot to me. I get so many messages from readers in India saying how they connected to the characters, they connected to the story. And I think, we do share, the Eastern cultures share a lot. We share a lot in our cultures, and I know there is sort of a history of some the Parsis in India, and so we have some commonalities. Definitely, it's been a surprise, but I've loved it, and it means a lot to me.
Sure, I'm sure.
You're talking
Neeraj,
about the
I
commonalities also. I'm sorry, Ekta. I just was wondering that, there are, it's not just the cultural commonalities. I mean, of course, language is part of it, but there are so many words. I was very surprised to learn. So it's, for example, androon, which is an, inner room, or it is a sabzi, or it is also, it's very fascinating that all of these words are also very Indian. In fact, the word dahati also, which in India we call dehati.
and
Yes.
and also June and Jan,
Oh,
such heartwarming words. Yeah. So, like in India, though it's a part of, I think it's Urdu, wherein we call Jan, and in Persian, like in your book, we read so many places calling your dear ones as June. So that's also kind of very familiar.
oh, I didn't know that. I do get messages from readers when they say, oh, we have this word in my language too. Dahati actually came up. I didn't know about June and John. And in Persian, the formal word is John.
Oh,
June is sort of when you say it in a more intimate way. but the actual word is John. And if you look at my name, the last syllable is actually John.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
built into my name. Yeah.
We can also call you June
Yes.
intimately.
Yeah.
Because we love you so much.
Aww.
So, Marjan, I think Abhishek also wanted to ask you something. I'm sure he's waiting.
Hi, Marjan. This is like a dream come true for me. I'm just fresh off reading Together Tea, and I just loved it so much. And I was just wondering, like all your characters, whether it's in stationery shop or it's in Together Tea, especially like Daria and Parveez and even Beta, they are such strong, bold characters, and very rarely do we see Muslim men and women being, portrayed in this light. So, was it like your conscious decision to break these like stereotypes that we have, or it's just how it is actually? So yeah.
Thank you. You know, it's a little bit of both. I think there is the stereotype, especially about Iranian women, that they must be submissive or very quiet. And I think that stereotype must be, you know, encouraged by people who've never met an Iranian woman, because at least in my own family, most Iranian women are very, very opinionated and vocal. They're not submissive. So it was a very conscious decision to have my women be strong, because not to necessarily only betray the stereotype, but because that's, I think, the reality. And the men also, I wanted to portray the way I see a lot of the Iranian men I know, which again goes against the stereotype, because there's a stereotype there as well. Now, we all know that stereotypes are in part based on reality. So I'm not saying that men like that don't exist in Iran. They do. Sadly, we have a strong history of a patriarchal culture, and women have been oppressed. I'm not denying that. But I think that the reaction to the oppression is you basically cultivate your strengths, and you actually have to be strong. You don't have a choice. So that's the part I wanted to show as well, that strength.
Such narratives bring so much of joy and happiness, because they talk about strength. They break those myths that people have, across cultures, across different countries. And when we really look at literature from that parlance, I think we've been always talking this as well as a club, when we were discussing your book, that uh, how fascinating Tehran looks, and how lovely we want to visit, Tehran. Yeah, of course, I have a copy too.
Yeah.
It's Together Tea.
Yes. You too, yes.
So, all of these places, I mean, all of these books and narratives takes us to so many cultures and customs, wherein, we could actually feel like, we've been there. And the stationery shop of Tehran, and even Together Tea, and, a lot of books that we kind of read from Elif Shafak, Orhan Pamuk, and, all of these amazing, brilliant writers. And, we feel that, we've just traveled to all of those places. Just like in this case, I find Tehran so familiar with some of the places in India, wherein we have those kind of, circles wherein people are meeting, those bridges, and, everything like those bookstores, those old bookstores. So it just feels like you've been to, on a trip to nostalgia, wherein you've just been to one of your nannies or grandparents. I mean, like your maternal grandparent, we call them nani in Hindi, and dadi, who's the paternal grandparent. So it feels like you've been back to those childhood days, wherein you've been visiting them, and you've been seeing all of those, the real part of how a culture and traditions are intertwined together. So I think stationery shop of Tehran was such a joyride for in those terms, but it was equally shattering and heartbreaking. And you just fall in love with all of those characters.
Characters.
So yeah. and I was just, thinking about this when I was talking about this, wherein, authors have kind of lived in those countries and now, moved. So, in Together Tea, there is a passage I would just want to, read that out and then, ask you a question, which is very close to my heart. So it says, I'm reading from the book, I quote, she knew how to swing her legs on that hyphen that defined and denied who she was, Iranian American. Neither the first word nor the second really belonged to her. Her place was on the hyphen, and on the hyphen she would stay, carrying memories of the one place from which she had come and the other place in which she must succeed. The hyphen was hers, a space small and potentially precarious. On the hyphen she would sit, and on the hyphen she would stand, and soon, like a seasoned acrobat, she would balance there perfectly, never falling, never choosing either side over the other, content with walking that thin line. Oh my God, I think these lines are so beautiful.
Beautiful.
They just, yeah, they just kind of tell you that, like we all are kind of living those hyphenated lives, and we're never, on one side of it. So how had been that for you? Have you made peace with it, personally as well? Because the characters in the book kind of don't do that. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yes. I'm really glad you read that passage. Thank you, because it's an example of something that I wrote. I remember when I wrote that, I was literally sitting on the floor. I was sitting on the floor in our old house in New Jersey, and I was writing by hand. I write a lot of the first drafts by hand. And I wrote that, and it was kind of from the heart, expressing how I felt. I mean, obviously, it's how Mina feels in Together Tea, but it was very much how I felt myself. And then I remember thinking, oh, maybe I should take this passage out. Maybe it's too much. I shouldn't put this in. But I'm really glad I kept it, because it's very much spoken to people, and I feel they can relate to it. And the hyphen, I fought it for so long, trying to figure out which side do I fall on. And then I realized, you know what? My place is really just on that bridge. And that's what it is. It's a bridge. And I began to see it more as empowering rather than limiting, because when you do straddle both cultures, you have the benefit of choosing the best of both worlds. Oftentimes we feel like we experience the worst really of both worlds, but you can choose the best. So I can be grateful for the richness of the Iranian culture that I have access to, and also grateful for the benefits of the American culture, and stop thinking of it as a negative, but as just a wonderful, empowering thing. And the other thing is, we're all on the hyphen, even if it's not between cultures. And you could be on the hyphen between being a full-time career person and a parent. You could be on the hyphen between living on the East Coast of your country or the West Coast, and those cultures could be different. You could be on the hyphen between your commitment to, let's say, certain family members and your own dreams, and how you wish you could pursue those dreams without the weight of your family duties. So we're all on different kinds of hyphens all the time. And I think that's why maybe that passage has spoken to people.
Absolutely.
I think in continuum to that, there is a similar sort of a line in the same, one of the other characters, Mina's boyfriend, says, sometimes I think to belong everywhere is to really belong nowhere.
Nowhere.
I just found it so profound. Like, there is so much so much that he wants. He wants to be like so torn between, emotions, between places, between duties. And so does that also feel very personal to you when you wrote that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, I moved so much when I was growing up, and I wasn't in Iran for that long. I was, in Iran as a child for a few years, and then I've moved all over the world. And there's a benefit to that, because you feel as though you have been steeped in these different cultures that shape you. And you get to see, when you live in a country, you really get to experience it. But at the same time, it can feel like you have no home. It really can. So I do think to belong everywhere is in a way to belong nowhere. But in the end, I realized that my home isn't a place. It's not
Wow.
it's not really a country. It's not a geographical region. I really found my home in book and in my family.
Wow.
So my nuclear family, who, you know, I was with no matter where we were, but also in literature, that's where I found my home. And that
Wonderful.
became my constant. Yeah, so wherever I've been, wherever I go to this day, I try to visit two places. One, the local public library, if there is one, because I feel at home when I'm in a library. And also the stationery shop, if there is one. Because those small stationery shops, and I think you all know from reading the book, I love them.
Yes, yes.
They're so magical. They're so magical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, actually, if I may ask also, so many of the characters in the book, especially Roya, when we talk about her, when we see her life in the USA, and then and her very passionate, very young love with Bahman, she is also kind of living that hyphenated existence. I mean, obviously, but you know, you also talk about that it is possible for a person, just like they belong nowhere, therefore they belong everywhere. In the same way, I thought that they you know, it's possible for a person to fall in love or be in love rather than falling in love, be in love with two people at the same time.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I really am, because sometimes people say to me, you know, they say, oh, did she love Batman more? Did she love Walter more? And to me, it's not a question of more. You can truly love two people at the same time in different ways. And you can also carry in your heart this love at the same time, I think, without betraying the person that you're currently with. Because her love for Batman is just so sort of steeped to her country, to her past, to her youth. I think she associates it with that time in her life where she was a certain way. And so that love represents so much more than just him. It represents who she used to be, and it represents her culture and her connection really to Iran. And maybe she doesn't want to let that go. But I don't think she loves Walter any less. I really don't. And I think she has a shared history with Walter that is very, very strong. And they, over the course of the book, experience a lot of joy together, and we know a lot of loss together. And that, in their case, brings them closer, which is great. So I don't believe that you can't love two people at the same time. I also don't think there's only one soulmate out there for us, right? I mean,
Oh
it just
God.
depends. And you know, you were saying you're reading together, T, and there's a subplot there with the mother
Yes,
where she finally,
yes.
yeah, she
I,
realizes that for herself. Mm-hmm.
I was just about to ask about Daria's character. Loved it with what the relationship with Parviz and Sam, and this the nuance in that light-hearted, beautiful romance, and wherein there is no splitting of hair, where there is no decision to make, but just being in the moment. I mean, that was so beautiful.
Thank you. That's really what I was trying to show, that it's not a competition, and it doesn't mean she loves her husband any less. And I wanted Sam to be a good guy because it would be too easy if he wasn't. Actually,
Yes.
I will tell you, in the first draft, he wasn't. He ended up being a bit of a jerk, and you know that made it too easy. Yeah, because then
Yes.
there was no contest.
Yes.
But because he's so nice and he's so also a decent person, it makes it more complicated, I think. And she realizes, Daria, the mother, and together T realizes, kind of in her middle age, that you know, she could have gone, maybe if she had another life, she would have been with Sam and they would have had a shared history, and that would have been fine. Or she could have gone with one of her old suitors in Iran and they would have built a life together, and that would have been fine in its own way. There's no one right answer. We
Right.
make the lives that we make, right? We make our relationships through our mutual effort, through our joy, through the time we spend. It's not like a magic thing necessarily, though sometimes it can feel that way. And I've been blessed in that I think I feel that way, that it's magic with my husband. But if you take a step back, it's not really, right? It's just how things fall into place, and how much you sort of lean into it
Yeah.
and accept it and, you know, celebrate
It's
it.
sort of having goosebumps when you're saying all this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Oh
I
God.
also wanted to, really thank you. This is why I think reading is so much important, and especially reading authors like you is so very important, because you probably might come from all of those, immutable identity. So this is my immutable identity, but then there could be shared identities. You share life with so many people, and really, like Abhishek said, it's goosebumps when I was reading this. I was also kind of wondering about the mother in this book, the stationery shop, and I reread it. So Bahaman's mother, and there's a lot of unresolved, if I can say that, unresolved conflict, unresolved issues that are going on with her mental health and all of these things. And I actually, culturally, I think that, I started looking at the generation of my mother and my grandmothers in a very different light. So was it like a conscious thing that you kind of wrote about, Badri?
Absolutely. I wanted to write about mental health because I do think there's a stigma still. We don't want to discuss it. We especially don't want to discuss it if somebody is suffering from mental health problems in our own families. And with Badri, when you first meet her, you know, early in the book, you just see her as Batman's mother, and she's so kind of nasty. And it's very easy to judge her. It's easy to judge her because she seems pretty horrible. But then when we get into her backstory and we see what happened to her, and we see how trauma helped trigger these behaviors, I think hopefully there's a bigger understanding of why she behaves the way she behaves. And you know, in the epigraph to the stationery shop, I write a quote from actually President Harry Truman: "There's nothing new in the world except the history you do not know." And obviously, he meant it in reference to geopolitics, and that can apply to the stationery shop. But I meant it also with people, because when you meet someone, it's easy to make a snap judgment about them. Oh my goodness, she's like this, he's like that. But it's only when you learn the history you do not know about them, and maybe what they've been through, that you can fully understand their behavior within context. And I think growing up, I felt there was a big stigma against talking about mental health. Whenever I would ask questions about mental health in my own family, I felt like it was a bit brushed under the rug. People didn't want to get into it. And the idea was, you know, well, some people are like that. They can't help it, and that's just how it is. And family members would compensate. Family members, like we see Batman and we see his father, there is no diagnosis, there is no treatment for his mom. So they take it on themselves to sort of take care of her, but also to uh, give the outside world the appearance of everything is okay, we have it under control, don't worry. And, you know, in a way, they have to compensate for her behavior. And I think that happens a lot. And I would say 1953 Iran, a lot of these things were not talked about. And even today in America, sometimes they're still very much avoided. But I think it's good to talk about them.
Absolutely. And I think, Marjan, like you have also mentioned about soulmates, when you start reading maybe Tea Together or the stationery shop, your heart goes out for every character. You have those strong feelings coming in, wherein initially you start hating Baman's mother, that why is she being so, and then you just start falling in love with Mr. Fakri, that oh my God, he's so nice, he's letting those people come together and all of that. And then when as the story unfolds, uh, you just can't stop loving any one of those characters. They're so endearing, so loving. And I remember, we read this as a club, I think almost 2.5 years back. And this is one of those books I still remember so much. And I mean, it's so close to my heart. So I think, the concept of soulmates that you talked about, that, it's not necessary that you have only one soulmate in life, is so universal. And it actually makes you think how beautiful, your stories can take you and transcend you to a different level altogether. So thank you so much for writing such lovely stories.
Thank you.
Also, Marjan, just wanted to ask you, all of us here and a lot of writers are there in the club, would love to know from you, what has been your writing schedule? Did you follow, like a proper schedule of writing? And how did Stationery Shop came into existence?
Ooh, yeah. So I don't have a very consistent writing schedule. I know a lot of times you hear you're supposed to write every day. And I used to hear that growing up a lot. And then I would get very despondent because it was impossible for me to write every day, especially when I was raising kids and, I had so many other demands on my time. But I realized I don't need to write every day. I just need to stay engaged with the work. So the way my schedule is now is I've realized what works for me is to not sort of separate the writing from my actual life. Sometimes people go away, they go on a retreat, they sit down, they escape their lives just to get that time. But sometimes it's impossible to do that. So I've built it into my daily life. Honestly, just by setting a timer, even if it's 45 minutes, that's 45 minutes that you really focus on the work. And I have the benefit of being able to write in the mornings. I think mornings are better, just for me anyway, because by the end of the day, I find it hard to concentrate. And I've learned that you have to be very patient and accept that writing a book takes a really long time and it's not an efficient process. So you'll make mistakes, you go back, you have to accept it as a journey. And what you said really moved me, because you said you read this book 2.5 years ago and it stayed with you. And I think that means so much to me as a writer, because it means a lot when people write to me and they say, this book changed me, or it changed how I think about love, or how I think about loss, how I think about Iran, how I think about, certain relationships and friendships. Well, the book changes the reader, but the book also changes the writer. So
Wow.
those of you who are
Wow.
writers, yes, and you said in your club, many are, I would say accept the struggles and the setbacks as part of the journey. Like, don't resist it, because if it was easy, it wouldn't be very good. I think if you were able to sit down and just pump out a book, I don't think it would be very good. There has to be an introspection that requires some pain and some time. It has to steep. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like
Absolutely.
a good dish you're making. You have to give it time. You have to give it attention and care. And in the long run, it will be worth it. And in the long run, you, the writer, will also be transformed by the book you're writing. And when you finish it, you'll be a bit of a different person than you were when you started it.
Oh
I
my
can listen
God.
to all day. Actually, I forgot all the rest of the questions.
Like, I'm just getting goosebumps after goosebumps. It's just that's what is happening right now.
I'm sure the way, how our day just passed today since morning, texting each other that, oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I think the night is going to be the same.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad.
But I do have a question for because politics is writ large. I mean, it's a very important part of this, and also the the socio-economic conditions of the various characters that are involved in this, right? I was kind of wondering that, and in one of the previous questions, you also said that it is very important to react. It is very important to say, to be active, right? I was thinking, what would Roya and Zari, what would they be doing in the present day Iran, or what would they have to say to whatever is happening right now, the situation in the country?
Yeah, so Roya and Zari today would be about in their early 80s. They would be in their early 80s today. There's no question in my mind they would be following what's happening in Iran. I mean, I'm sure you know, ever since last September, these protests that have been happening for women's rights, for human rights, and sparked by such a tragic incident where a young woman was arrested and then eventually killed, basically, for just improper hijab. I mean, if you think about it, the injustice is so great. I feel Roya and Zari, I'm assuming they'd be in America because we left them when they were both in 2013 still in America. So they'd be following, like so many Iranian Americans I know, following the news on their phones, calling their relatives in Iran, hoping, trying to help, feeling powerless. It's an emotional roller coaster that's happened not just since September 2022, but just honestly for the past 44 years, where I think I think what makes what's happening in Iran so difficult is that it wasn't like this. You know what I'm saying? It'd be one thing if all along women didn't have the rights. So then you'd think, okay, well, this is how it is. But even that would be horrible and I feel should be changed. But it wasn't like this. They had the rights and then they were taken away. And that's what makes it extra tragic, I feel, and sad to think that so much progress could be undone. And we see it, even to be honest, on a larger scale in Afghanistan, right?
Yes.
We see the women there just completely denied their basic rights. And it's incredibly sad. It just doesn't, I don't think anyone could look at the situation there and think this is good. But clearly there are people who like it that way.
Like, it is so sad when you get it so much from media, from news channels coming to you. But when somebody belongs to that place and talks to you about it, just like you did right now, it really kind of hits you hard deep inside. And being a woman, I can definitely tell you that all of this is so hard to take in. Apart from just being thinking that what's happening is bad, there's also a sense of fear that it instills that it could be you
Yeah.
next, it could happen to you, because you stop trusting the humanity in general. And when I was reading the stationery shop, I was so overwhelmed, even with with tea together, the fathers that you have kind of defined, and you've talked about them. I mean, we really need those men in our lives, and I think we really need such endearing, lovely fathers. And they give you hope. Whatever is happening, somebody is there who's kind of protesting it. And when we read your books, and we saw those people listening to Metallica, Beatles, and there is that sense of party culture going on. And when we see it today, it's 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 so devastating. It's so hurtful. It makes me angry, to be very honest, to see what's happening. And I think how important such narratives are. The kind of story that you have brought in, it definitely gives us a sense of pride that what we were and what we become. It breaks our heart with that. So I'm so glad that you brought in this story, because we read a lot of Persian authors, and as a club, or rather the three of us have been so much closer to Persia in particular. I've been reading those authors and love your culture. And I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't think so. I can say anything.
No, you said it so well. You said it so well. That is the fear. The fear is it can happen. If it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. I mean, we want to think certain countries are immune, but I really don't think any country is immune. Not a single one, because if you think about Iran in the late 1970s, nobody thought it would happen there. Nobody thought it could happen in
Right.
Iran. Because in the late 70s, it was pretty progressive and westernized, which was part of why the revolution happened as a reaction to that. But I mean, it could happen anywhere. And so you mentioned anger, and I'm really glad you did. Anger is a huge emotion that we're often told we should tamp down or we shouldn't feel, but anger can be incredibly empowering. Anger is what those women on the streets feel. Those girls in the school, they feel anger. They feel anger because they feel like their lives aren't theirs. That's a horrible, horrible feeling. And the fathers you mentioned too, thank you for mentioning them. I wanted to be sure I included them because luckily those are the fathers I know. So I've been privileged to have a father like that, grandfather like that. The father in the stationery shop, Roya's father, is based in part on my grandfather, who at that time was, encouraging his daughters to get educated and was a progressive, and I think when we see what's happening in Iran today, you see the women in the streets, but you see the men supporting them. Not all of
Yes.
them, not all of them. But we should give kudos to the men who are supporting them because they're
Absolutely.
also putting their lives on the line.
I will definitely give them your book. Please read your books.
Yes.
Because it was such a surprise also, a book which has politics, but it made me cry. It was so heartbreaking as well. So I was conflicted. Is it political? Is it a romantic story?
It's
And
both,
Neeraj,
I
if you
think. It's both, just like our lives, right? It's everything.
and Marjan, at one point in time, Neeraj and I and Abhishek were discussing that, at some point we also felt it was like a whodunit because
It
we were
was,
just
I
Yes.
was going to say, it was like, who
what's
messed
going
with
on?
their relationship?
I did that on purpose. I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad because I did that on purpose. I wanted the reader to wonder who did it, right? Was it Zari because she's the
I
one who,
thought it was Harry.
right? She has the envelope that she gives. And
Yeah.
I want you to think, oh, maybe it was, remember Jahangir,
Yes.
Batman's good
Yes.
friend? He had reason to do it. And you might think, oh, is it the stationery shop owner? Is it, well, we won't give it away, but now you know.
I just had a question. It's like the cover is different in different
Yeah.
countries. Like that's only the stationery shop, I think, in the US. In India, we have it as stationery shop of Tehran. I also just knew that in Poland it's called completely different,
Scent of
scent of
saffron.
saffron.
Yep.
So were you involved in these different titles, or it was just like something that uh, was decided by somebody else, or how did you feel at the end of the day when there were these different titles?
It's really strange to look at the different titles because some of them I have no control over. I was involved in the US title and actually the UK title, which is also the title in India. So they did discuss that with me. In North America, it's just the stationery shop. In the UK, they were very, very adamant about adding of Tehran. And at first, I didn't really want that. Because I thought it'd be better to have the titles be consistent, but they insisted, and so we let them have it. So it's the stationery shop of Tehran in India and the UK. And like you said, Scent of Saffron in Poland, very different titles all over the world. I have some of the foreign editions here. It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating. Once you sign a contract with a foreign country, they do control the title and the cover. They ask me for my approval, but I don't have that much to say. And you know, Together Tea in Germany is called 1001 Pomegranate Kernels. So
Oh my God.
I know, I know, it just
Wow.
goes all over the place. I know. 1001 pomegranate kernels. So some titles make sense to me, some don't. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is.
And being such a tea lover, this breaks my heart.
I
I
know.
know. Yeah, yeah. They ignore the teapot. Yeah.
But you know what, Marjan, this book, more than, about everything that we discussed, it is also about food.
Mm.
The
Oh,
amazing food. Oh my God. I was hungry all the time and I just wanted to have tea one after the other. I don't know if you're aware, but in India, tea is like the thing. So whenever you are with anyone, anybody comes to your house, you're going anywhere out, you're meeting
You offer
friends,
tea.
you offer tea. I mean, tea, if you're not offering someone tea,
Oh
it's kind of
wow.
a disrespect. I have got
No, I
a
know.
Turkish cup.
Same, same in Iran. And I think we got it from India. You know, the tea culture in Iran, which is now such a huge part of the culture, tea all day. Anyone comes over, like you said, you serve tea. But it was from India. Originally, way back, that wasn't, they drank more coffee than tea, which I was surprised to learn. But yes, the tea culture is now very much a thing, a huge part of life. Huge.
Amazing.
and if I may, actually, there's a lot of translation of Rumi, and I wanted to read one which really, it just stopped me in the tracks, and I wondered a lot about it. It says, "The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers do not finally meet somewhere; they are in each other all along." About the translation, I wanted to ask you, did you do the translation yourself, or was it like some research that you had to do for it?
I didn't. I wish I was proficient enough to translate it myself. I'm not. I mean, I read Persian, I understand Persian, but I'm not good enough to do the translation. I did speak to a good friend of mine whose father actually translates a lot of Rumi, who in Persian we call him Molana. And I said I need a poem that could encapsulate this love story. She helped me find that. She helped me find that piece. And I felt when I read it, it really to me just summarizes Roya and Batman so well, where it's just this connection they have, and sometimes you can't explain it. It was incredibly strong when they were young, as these things often are when we're young. But a part of it stayed imprinted in both of their minds and didn't go away. All those years didn't make it go away. And I think that does happen. I did some research, and when we're young and we fall in love, usually our first love happens when we're young, right? That's just like how it happens. And your brain hasn't even fully developed yet. And so those imprints that get created stay. They almost become permanent in the back of your brain, really,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
then something can trigger it, like a
Yes.
voice, a scent can trigger it. And that's what I found fascinating, that even biologically, it's still there. It's still there.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
surprisingly, I thought that this was applicable to Walter as well. I mean, when I was reading it in the context of Walter, and still, so talking about Walter, I imagine him to be like a canvas on which the entire painting has been done. So it's so very important. He's in the background. So could you also? I'm sorry, I'm asking too many questions, but could you also talk about Walter?
Oh, yes. Walter is a, a character I love. And I think he is he loves his wife so much that he gives her the gift of her having closure about this first love. It takes a big man to do that. You cannot be an insecure man and do that. And maybe Walter, when he was 37, wouldn't have done that. but at the time that we have Roya go to see Batman again after 60 years, she and Walter are about 77, right? And I think by then they have enough shared history, and he loves her so much that he wants her to heal. He wants her to heal. He wants her to have closure. He wants her to understand. And so I love what you said about Walter being on that canvas, because he's not on the page that much in the book, but he is always there. He's always there. And we see also how he's there for Roya when they experience the worst thing a person can experience, in my opinion. The worst thing a person can experience, he is there. You know, he has his troubles, but he's there. And it's a testament to his character. I wanted to show that just like countries have their good sides and bad sides, people do too. And it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. No one is fully good or fully evil, but Roya learns to really cherish the parts that are good in the people that she knows, the people in her family, her friends, even her sister Zari, who drives her crazy. You know, she really appreciates that, and that, I think, is what we all should do.
Absolutely. And I know, Marjan, we're running out of time, but I mean, we asked for lesser time, but you know, like Neeraj said, we can't stop talking to you. So, you know, I just wanted to ask you, because I know everybody wants to know. We've been waiting for so long. When is your next book coming?
Okay. You know what? Here's the thing. You are all so nice. I haven't said this publicly to anybody. I haven't said it publicly on Instagram. I haven't said it publicly anywhere. But I'll say it to you and your readers, because I feel a strong connection to all of you. It's coming out next July. It's coming out next July.
Oh my God.
You heard it here first. You heard it on Read a Kitab. Yes, it's coming out next July.
And we are wanting to have you again.
Yes. I would love that. I would love that. So next summer. Yeah, next summer.
And we would order our advance copies, pre-signed.
Yes.
I will. I'll let you know. You know, we're already. They know it, that the other two are so beloved in India, and I know. Well, I don't know. I hope that this third one will also connect. Yeah, so we'll see.
Oh my God, it is definitely going to be. You are a master storyteller, because it is all coming from the heart, you know.
Yes.
It doesn't look pretentious. It doesn't look made up. And you know, you also said that you were sitting one day on the floor and writing, you know. I mean, it's not a made up process. So everything that is coming from the heart, I mean, we are going to love it. And I'm so happy. I can't wait for July.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Save this life.
That's 1 year.
I'll tell my agent later. I'll say, oh, I just chatted with Read a Kitab, and so hopefully everything will go on schedule, and it should be out next summer.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you know what kitab means. So kitab in Hindi means a book.
Yes,
so,
and in Persian too. Another word we have in common.
Oh my God.
That's
serendipitous.
Yes. Oh, for me,
Marjan.
Yeah, when I saw your name, the name of your book club, I was like, oh, I get that, you know. So yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's so amazing. Makes our day and night and waiting
everything
more beautiful. But Marjan, we'll have a quick rapid fire round, and all right, I think we'll start with Neeraj.
Yeah. So, any favorite author that you have, and any favorite book that you have, or any recommendations?
It's so hard to have a favorite. I think an author who shaped me so much when I was, you know, a young adult was Toni Morrison, and I love Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Just those two, I would say, are two of my favorite authors of all time. And contemporary wise, I would say I just love Anne Patchett. And she has a new book out, which I haven't read yet, but I really can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what's your favorite Persian food? It's like
Ooh,
gourmet sabzi or
it's
Barbary
Parmesan.
rice.
Parmesan, hands down, my favorite. Every time I visit my parents, my mom makes it. It's always been my favorite since I was little. I just love it so much. I could have
And
it.
and and is your breakfast bread, feta cheese, and sour cherry jam?
It is. It is. It's bread, feta cheese. Sometimes instead of sour cherry jam, it's the Trader Joe's strawberry jam because I can't always get my hands on sour cherry. But yes, it is.
Since I read it, I'm like, I feel like I should go and have that
You
somewhere.
should. You should have it. You should have it. So good.
Maybe we should all go to, the Eastern
Tehran.
Coast and meet Marjan once
Oh
and we
yeah.
have it with her.
Well, you probably have the right bread, I think you have the naan that is
None.
also,
Yes.
yeah. So I think it's the same style of bread for sure.
So Marjan, any recommendation for the club? Any book that you would want to recommend to the club to read?
Let me think. Well, there's a new book that just came out that I love. It's called No Two Persons by Erica Bauermeister. And it's a book about a book, if that makes sense. And maybe I think you would enjoy it. It's also written incredibly well. No Two Persons.
No, to person.
Oh wow.
Thank you
Okay.
so much
Thank you
for that
so much for that.
recommendation.
Yes.
And Marjan, before we kind of end, not one, but two questions I have very quickly. So I can't get enough. I'm sorry. So, any Iranian author that you would want to recommend to all of us for reading?
Ooh, there's so many good ones out right now. My goodness. Let's see. It's hard to pick just one of my contemporaries because honestly, luckily, we're blessed with more and more great voices. But an Iranian author that I would recommend you read, who is from a few decades ago, but she started the whole thing for a lot of women writers. Her name is Simin Daneshvar. Last name is Daneshvar. And she was one of the first successful female novelists in Iran. So
Wow. That's such an incredible thing to know. I mean, we gotta pick up those books and definitely read. And Marjan, thank you so much for coming here. It is such a delight and such an honor to have you here. We would just want, if you want to ask us something about the club or something, it is off to you. And then before signing off, I again have one question to ask.
yes. Well, your club seems so wonderful. I was wondering how it got started.
Sure.
How it got
So Marjan, it got started. So yeah, it was just a passion project. It started as like, we were a bunch of passionate readers who were, for the love of word, we just used to discuss books. And then we started it off. We started meeting friends, and during the COVID times, actually, we used to read online together books and then discuss those books. And then it just so happened that, there are so many people in the world who want to read, and the club just grew. And today we are so happy to have so many thousands of readers reading with us from India, from across the globe. And oh my God, it is such an overwhelming feeling. When we just started it, we never thought that it's going to be this big, this huge. And this is so amazing to have, people discussing books, talking to each other. And there is so much love that we have for writers, for authors, for the love of the word, actually. And I think that's how Reader Kitab was born. And we are now 2 years old. Yeah, we are 2 years old now.
2 years old. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank
You've
you.
done so much great stuff. I mean, it's amazing how it's grown.
Thank you, Marjan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we're so happy to have you here. And we've still not recovered from your books, and I'm sure I'm going to reread them before your next one comes out because it is such a pleasure. But I want to ask you that, after the session, I'm going to have tea. So I want to know what's the authentic, Persian tea
Yes.
recipe, or, how do you brew a Persian tea? We want to know in steps.
Okay. I will tell you. So the proper way is tea leaves, as you all know, not the tea bag, and black tea. But the key ingredients are bergamot. So if you have bergamot, that makes it, a bit like Earl Grey bergamot. And if you have cardamom, which I think you guys are well
Yes,
familiar
we
with
do.
cardamom.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you put it in a teapot, and then you put the tea leaves in the teapot. You boil some water separately. Pour the boiling water in the teapot till the teapot is about a little more than half full. Then you take your kettle, take the lid off the kettle where the water's been boiled, put the teapot on top of the kettle, and then put like a little cloth over the teapot. This way it really brews and steams. It's almost like a makeshift samovar. So that's
Oh my
my tip.
God.
That's my little tea. Well, it's not really mine. That's how they make it. So yeah.
Oh my
I've
God.
just
thank you
noted
so much
I've just
for
noted
that.
it down.
So I
That
hope
would be
you
good
So, so
recovery from the book also, right? I mean, it is so difficult to get over this.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to join you. Thank you for this lovely conversation.
Thank you so
thank you,
Thank you so
much.
Marjan.
much for your time. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye.